Hi everybody, welcome to the call. This is Paint by Numbers. This is Real Estate Edition. This is our role-playing and objection handling. I'm going to unmute Steve again, Steve Johnson, at some point during the call. But let me get going, do some of the basics, and then I will introduce Steve, who you guys already know, and get him to weigh in on some cool objections and stuff, because he's a master on this. Let's see. Doug Cameron, really fast. Are you saying that we're good on the screen or no? Let me make sure. Doug just said your screen. All right. So, as we preface this call, the whole point of this is just kind of talking through, boy, that's bad grammar, talking through some talking points and some objections that sometimes seem to come up. Okay, perfect. Thanks, Doug. All right. So, I will try to be very to the point, just like we're doing with the course. And I'm not going to belabor any of this to get it to go longer or shorter, etc., right? So we're going to talk about confidence, because I really think this is probably the most important thing. And you're probably saying, whatever. And I'm like, no, it really is. Some key points to handle inbound calls. Notice I said inbound. Objections, rebuttals, and then we'll take some Q&A. And I'm going to bring Steve out to help on the objections, rebuttals. Exactly. Thanks, Doug. All right. So, guys, I don't know how to say this. If you're confident, and let's just speak in terms of what we're doing here, but it goes to everything else. You will overcome critics, people that are out, you're not going to make it. That's not going to work. Doubt, that you have internally, the negativity that exists, fear that you probably have, or I have, or whomever has, right? All these things. You will overcome that if you are confident. And if you're confident, guess who, and I'm going to ask you to go ahead and type in the box, guess who can tell you're confident in what you're doing? You're taking a call from, let's say, Steve Johnson, who's a realtor, and Steve calls you back, Doug Cameron or somebody else, and if you're confident, do you think Steve knows? The prospect. Yeah, absolutely, guys. And it's amazing the difference when you sound upbeat and confident, or you sound like you're really not doing that well today. You have to have confidence and believe in yourself, because if you don't, why should they believe in you when they're only meeting you on the phone? Right? It's in the voice, Lowell just said. And Anna's right. Purchasers can definitely tell. Let's see. Yeah, Warren just said, our current most prominent example of confidence and overcoming overwhelming odds is Donald Trump. I mean, if that guy wasn't confident in himself, I don't know who is. He believed in himself when everybody else thought he was going to be the first guy out in the Republican field. So, yeah, definitely very, very confident, understatement of the year. But you need to be confident, absolutely, and it needs to shine through. And when you do it, they can tell. And like Gail just said, a little bit of attitude, where you act like you don't care if you get the sale or not because you have lots of business. That's a fine line. I think Gail's spot on. And you will get there when you get there. You can't teach it. You learn that. So just remember, confidence will beat down your own internal doubts and fears. It'll beat down critics. It'll make the prospect that much more open to listening and possibly buying from you. So very, very important. All right. So we start talking about inbound calls, right? So really, I put it again because I figured a graphic and then in text. Confidence number one. So for anybody who gets discouraged easily and gets down on themselves, don't. The beauty of this is you can say the magic words, next, and it's okay. It's like being at a golf driving range with Brian, and I take out a clump of dirt the first time. And you know what? As long as most people aren't laughing at me, I'm ready. I say next. And next I dribble one to the left, or I slice it to the right, or it's on the ground. And then about the seventh time, holy cow, I hit a shot that looks like it could be on TV. Now, the fact that it's probably a little bit of luck, but that's okay, because as I start to get that memory, as I swing and everything else, it's amazing how it changes. So, yeah, here's a good one from Warren. This is a Jack Canfield quote. Chicken soup for the soul, etc. Some will, some won't. So what? Someone's waiting. So, very interesting. So don't get discouraged, guys. More calls are better than less. I was talking to Sean last week, and he was a little bummed by, he was getting some feedback that wasn't ideally what he wanted. He was getting to know very fast. And Robert, yes, it's very, very good book. More calls are better than less. You will get better. First time you rode a bicycle, if you're like most of us, you fell down. Now, if I had to guess, there's like 3 of you that immediately could ride the bike better than half of the rest of your friends as a kid, right? So move on quickly. Don't dwell on negativity. All right? Move on quickly. Don't dwell on negativity. Negatively. Boy, I wrote that wrong. Don't dwell on anything negative. Negative thoughts, negativity. When you get a no, go for the next no, so to speak, right? Move on. Don't wear it on your chin or on your shoulder or a chip. Just move on. Back to that quote from that Warren gave us. Next. One thing I would tell you is always, always, always get follow-up information. Business name, email, phone number. You already have the phone number. Just validate it with them. They may give you another number, and all of a sudden you got more contact. And I'd put it in your little pipeline. If you use Pipedrive like we do, great. Or put it in your CRM, whatever it may be. Okay? Yeah, fail forward. I love that one, Brian. Absolutely. Like Sid, good friend of mine, Sid Michael, he would always say, next. And a couple times I got so discouraged because I want to win so bad. He's like, Brian, just go to the next one. Don't let it bother you, man. And he's right. But so think about these things, and as you keep these in your head, you will find that you will approach perfection. Now, none of us are going to reach perfection, but as you get better at all these things, you will approach perfection, which is all anybody could ask for. Now, let's talk about caller ID. Okay? Caller ID. Let me find the slide. Here it is. All right. Most important thing on a call that comes in on a caller ID call is that you take the call. Don't run from it. If you're at work, don't take the call if you have another job. But for everybody else, these are actually golden. The more I work with them, the more I like them. So remember, a call from caller ID is very casual and relaxed. I don't know about you guys, but I like casual. I mean, it is casual. So you don't have to be on for that call in the same way that you're on for a guy that's calling you back from the message or a gal, right? You get to control the conversation. Enjoy these calls. You don't have to run from them. You don't have to avoid them. They are way more relaxed because guess what they know? They already know that they didn't even listen to your message. What if you're $1 million house and you're about calling them to list, and how rude of them not to even have listened to your message? So they are going to be extra nice to you. So caller ID callbacks, do not run. Ken Lingle has me cracking up. Yeah, me either, Ken, right? Let's see. All right. Let me go to the next one on this. Just some key points. And hang on, Steve, I'm gonna unmute you if that's okay. Since he can't talk, I'm gonna assume he said yes. So, Steve, can you hear me, or is the snow getting you?
No, I didn't even know it was gonna snow today. We got like 4 inches.
That's my new joke with Steve. We got 4 1/1000ths of an inch. Steve gets 4 inches, and then he decides to go out and run. It's just crazy. So, Steve, so on caller ID callbacks, you like them too. I know we've talked about it. This is, I kind of wrote down a call that happened yesterday, and I just wrote it down, man. Hi, this is Brian Anderson. May I help you? And the caller goes something like this. I just got a call from this number, and they typically go on to say, this is Betty Smith. I'm an agent with Remax. And then I would go, yes, Betty, I just left you a message. Thanks for calling me back. Did you listen to it or did you get my message, right? And then they're going to say no, but you know what? They're disarmed. They're talking now. You've gotten past the hard part. Do you want to weigh in on this? Because I know you take these calls too and you think they're gold.
Yeah, I like these calls. Anytime that somebody who is in my target market wants to give me a couple minutes to talk, I think it's useful for me. So I take it basically the same way you do there. I answer my phone the same way all the time. Hey, this is Steve, or hi, this is Steve. And I never know who is calling. Yesterday, one of my lenders called when I had calls coming back, and I didn't realize it was him. He called from his office line instead of his cell phone, so I didn't have it in my phone. And I thought that's what we were going to talk about. But that's the thing, is they're so nice, like surprisingly nice. I've had death threats in the past when I'm telemarketing, and none of that comes up with these people. Even if they're not a good fit, they're open to talking and want to hear what I have to say. Give me a couple minutes, and they either raise their hand and say, yeah, I'm interested, or we talk about something else. I just don't get hung up. Hung up on by people when they call me back in my caller ID.
Yeah, no, totally agree. So when they say they didn't get your message, or when they say they didn't get my message, guys, they're always, when they tell you that, they already realize, I don't know about you, but I call people back too, like especially people I know, and I don't listen to their message. And let's say it was Sid, hypothetically. Sid's like, dude, did you get my message? And I'm like, no, Sid, I knew it was you, so I called you right back. Or if it's my wife, I call her right back, and she's like, what do you think about what I left on the message? And I'm thinking, God, I'm an idiot. I didn't play the message. Remember, that's going through their minds, too. They're going to be on their best behavior because they just broke phone etiquette and didn't listen to your message.
Yep.
So don't forget that, guys. All right, let's see. So, all right, so kind of going on, and let's see. This is on a callback. So instead of caller ID, hi, this is Brian Anderson. May I help you? And the caller may say something like this. Hey, I received your message or your voicemail about X, Y, and Z. Can you tell me some more about what you do? I'd be like, thanks, Betty. Thank you for calling me back. Let me tell you briefly how we work. And don't wait here. Don't pause for her to give you some reason why you need to be quiet. I go right on at this point once she's given me the go, or he or she's given me the go ahead, right? Go on to the material that that is on the next slide. So let me talk about that. Let's see. Oh, I missed this cool graphic that I had found. Somehow it was out of place. I don't know if any of you guys ever saw this movie. This guy who does very little is being asked what he actually does at this company, right? I think it's his office space, that might be. So what is it that you actually do here? And the guy spends like 10 or 15 minutes coming up with, he basically walks paper from one area to another, and that's all he does. It's crazy. He's like middle manager at this company. So what do you do, right? So kind of two parts. And if you were on Steve's case study call, you kind of heard what Steve said. I just wrote down the points that we use. Now, I write these down, and they're in front of Sean and Tracy, and they're allowed to internalize and say whatever the heck they want, as long as they kind of stick to this basic points. Because I don't want it to sound scripted. I want it to sound like that person, not like they're reading it. So we've got a unique marketing system or software that has local homeowners calling you about possibly listing their house. That's a magic phrase, guys. And or finding out the value of the home. Our agents typically get about 5 to 8 calls a day from homeowners who want to talk about their property. Is this something you'd be interested in? So notice I left out evil words like lead and lead generation, and I mentioned very important words like listing and receive calls, right? And then I ended it with a question. Steve, do you ask questions when you get them on the phone? I mean, do you use questions at all? And I don't know. And Steve and I didn't rehearse this, you guys. I'm genuinely asking. I think I know the answer, but I'm just going to ask him anyway for the benefit.
Yeah, I own the conversation with questions.
See, guys, if there's one thing that I've learned, Steve, I mean, exactly. The only way to own any conversation is by asking questions. Because one, you're letting them say whatever they want, but you're directing it. It's like you're the movie producer or the director, and they're just the actor doing whatever you say. And you can ask them anything you want to know, and once you get them speaking and opening up, that's really, really, really important. So when they say, is this something you'd be interested in? The caller may say something silly like, maybe, right? Because nobody wants to agree with somebody who's calling them or, agree with somebody that might be salesy. So yes, or maybe tell me more. And then I just try to reiterate the same thing. Well, Betty, at the core, our system is designed to get homeowners calling you about possibly doing a listing or buying a property. And then before I do anything else, I just say, can you tell me more about your business and the kind of clientele you work with? Get Betty talking. Let them tell you everything they want to tell you. They can tell you why their last marketing didn't work. It can be about anything you want, but get them talking. And if you get them talking, like Steve just said, he controls everything with questions. What do you think, Steve? What else would you add here? This is kind of we don't have a script, but these are just kind of the points we try to stick to. And if we do this, we find that we get better conversations. And if we don't do it, we find we get to I'm busy faster is what happens.
One of the things that I ask agents when they're calling in, if I need to flesh out the conversation a little bit more, is I'll ask them what they do for marketing now. A lot of them will say they just do circle marketing or referral marketing, just to their own list. But if you bring up things like Zillow or Trulia and things like that, and get them on the other side, the Zillow and Trulia as the bad guys, and you and the agent just kind of talking about it, I find that I'm able to build a lot of rapport that way. We become buddies, hating on the other guy, but I let them talk bad about it first. So yeah, I bring up and say, hey, are you using any of those Zillow leads or anything like that? And
so
I let them tell me bad things about it.
Yeah, you're just waiting to hear. Invariably, they're going to have some complaint, and you're going to let them rip on it, and they're going to build your own case really for you.
Yep.
Okay. Now, anybody else on that? And we'll come back to it, but let me move to the next slide here. So just some lessons learned, and I wrote a few of these down. Don't overwhelm yourself. I am so guilty of this. This is probably my biggest failure is, oh yeah, 80, yeah, man, bring it on, right? No. 10 to 15 calls are great. If you're going to get 80, you want to spread it out because you don't want to waste the value of the call.
80 calls is a full day.
80 calls is a hardcore day for a hustler. I mean, it's crazy. So, and when you're on the phone, whether they're blowing you off or they're interested, get their email, verify their business name, get everything you can. You're going to build a list, right? We all know the value of a list. So when you're doing follow-ups and stuff, you want this. And getting an email when somebody's already on the phone with you is really easy. Now, another one that I try to do is if they're going to blow you off, I always try to make them say no twice before I just give up. I want to say, they're blowing me off, and we'll talk about it on one of the objections, but one of my lessons is to make them say no twice. A lot of times it's easy to say it once, but the second time when you say, you're not interested in daily calls from possible listings, they might hesitate and say, well, maybe I am. I'm busy right now, and give you that in that'll result in a deal later. And I guess my last one is track, measure, set quantifiable goals, right? Brian Morrow, Steve just said, ask Steve if he asks if they take leads from their brokers. So do you ask that as one of your questions?
I mean, kind of. So it'll come up in a conversation. I mean, it has come up in conversation, but usually it's a result of asking them where they get most of their leads now, or if they do any cold calls, or, if you do a little bit of research into the industry, there's a lot of guys out there that'll say, hey, you should be getting your leads online, and they'll show you how to do it, and, for $1,000, $1,500 or something. there's a lot of guys out there that say, hey, know your scripts, get on the phones and call people in your neighborhoods, and that's the way to do it. And then there's a lot of 80% of real estate agents that just kind of fumble through. They post on Facebook, and a friend from high school hits them up and says, hey, I was actually thinking about buying a house, can you help me out? And then they stumble to the next one, and then they stumble to the next one, and then they get a referral from their broker, and then so it's, for a lot of them, they don't have a consistent way to be able to generate leads. And so when you ask them how they're doing that, you can get stuff that ranges across the board, or you can get them just saying, hey, you know what, I've been in the business for 20 years, and I get referrals from past clients, or I resell to past clients. But the number of people who are actually like that is very, very low. That's the reality. Or ask them how many transactions they did last year. When someone tells me that and they're trying to blow me off, I'll ask them, how many transactions did you do last year? And if it's under 20, it's like, a guy who's doing actual prospecting can do that in their sleep. Not that there's not a lot of paper to push, but they should be hiring that out or have someone on their team or brokerage doing that. So,
love it.
Okay. I hope that answered the question. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's good. Ken Lengel, guys, said, Steve, Ken said, we asked them if we can send them some info, and then we include a PDF regarding our service and our proposal. So, absolutely, you guys, when you get the information, you can do all that kinds of stuff. Let's see. So here's some phrases to avoid, and I'll come back to the questions, you guys. I don't want to go too far off the path, but avoid this phrase. I sell realtor leads, or I do real estate or realtor lead generation. God, it sure, Steve, when I first started doing it, man, that was my go-to phrase. It wasn't good, dude. It was not good at all. I don't even know how to describe. It was the fastest way to get to a no that I'd ever seen. Like, it's super fast. Super, super fast. And let's see. I want to see another. Avoid this phrase, this open-ended phrase. Well, I was calling to see what your marketing plans are for 2017. Because you know what their plan is? It's full. Yeah,
I already spent all my budget for 2017.
Yeah, I spent my budget. Don't ask questions that you don't already know the answer, or that gives them a chance to give you a really bad no. And just the words realtor leads or lead generation was a proven loser of the highest order. Let's see. And even if let's see, Brian Morrow just said they don't either, even if they won't admit it. So let's see. All right. So we were going to talk, somebody just asked, Ricardo asked about, not Ricardo, sorry, Ricardo, I'll come back to yours. Gary asked about rebuttals, Steve. So I wrote a few down, and then I thought we could talk about them. And then any of you, if you think of an objection that you're getting, let's talk about it. I'll get Steve to kind of weigh in on it, because I think it's important to get a variety of opinions, and Steve's knowledge now being immersed in the business is going to be different than my knowledge. I mean, he's at a much deeper level. So I wrote this one down first, guys. I don't need leads. And I guess it's a really common pushback, specifically with real estate, but not only. And the best way to avoid this is to avoid saying that you sell leads when you first start talking about what you do. And yes, even if you are in fact selling leads, I wouldn't use the phrase we sell leads or we sell lead generation, because they don't like this phrase. So, Steve, I suspect from the case study webinar we did that you don't really talk about that anyway. You don't talk about lead generation in any way.
No, I talk about homeowners calling them. Like, I frame it differently. Like, leads in this industry, it's just kind of funny how real estate agents are about it, right? I mean, you talk about leads to a roofer, and a roofer always wants leads. But in the real estate industry, it's just different. So the way I look at it is, hey, could you handle another 7 to 15 phone calls a day from homeowners who are considering selling their home? Well, the obvious answer is yes, unless they're absolutely too busy and they're selling 150 homes a year, which, let me tell you, that guy's not going to tell you no. He's going to talk to you a little bit about it either way because he has more business he wants to do, he or she. They may choose to go with you or not, but the guy doing 150 homes a year is going to talk to you because they always want to be on the cutting edge of getting the most leads that they can. But yeah, I don't really get that pushback. I don't get people saying I don't need leads. I guess I do get them saying it occasionally in a different way, in that, oh, you know what, I get all I need from my circle or from referrals, and then it's just a question of, hey, you know, that's awesome. How many transactions did you do last year? Oh, 24. That's awesome. So 2 a year. What if you could add more? Would you want to do that, or? And if they say no, then they're not a good fit for me. I just don't mess with it. I say, hey, I appreciate it. Do you know anybody that is trying to expand their real estate business? Well, of course they do. Whether they give you that information or not is kind of, you know, up in the air. But of course they know someone who is. And I try to focus on the people who are a good fit. Like if you know, someone just got their oil changed, they're not a good fit for a car dealership to offer them a free oil change. And if they tell me they just got their oil changed, I'm good. I'll move on to something else. Do you know anyone else that needs it?
Wow, I love it. Let's see. All right, Bev, I'll come back to yours. Gene just said he was in real estate for a number of years. He said most agents actually don't even like the word realtor. Gene said that the agents he knew, they didn't want to be associated with the name realtor. He said he doesn't like it for himself. So if lead gen is a bad word, if phrases like this are bad, then you want to avoid them. So and it doesn't matter even if you're actually selling them a per lead model. It's just not a lead. You know, you're just using different words, different phrases. All right, I'm gonna defer Steve. I'll let you talk about this. I can't afford that price. So Steve, you hit him with, I don't know, $450 or $49 or something. But Steve, I just can't afford it.
I wouldn't know what to say to somebody like that. Oh, did you just start yesterday?
Right.
I mean,
are you in the la la land of listings falling from heaven for free?
well, right. Like, what else would they do? I mean, even if they're going to pick up the phone and dial from a phone book, right? Like the old days. Even if they're going to do that, there's money involved in that. You got to have a phone. You got to have the time. What is your time worth? You know, I mean, there's just no way to do this. You can't get in this business without spending a little bit of money. That's the reality. Now, it's not a huge barrier to entry, but you know, I mean, in the past 3 months, just for licensing and broker fees and stuff, I'm probably $4,000 in. You know, that's just, you know, it's pay to play. You gotta pay a little bit to play. Now, when you start talking about, you know, what's $400 going to get you? It's going to get you, you know, 15 calls a day for 6 days and 100 phone calls where you're going to be able to be on the phone talking to people. What does it cost for you to do that another way? And that would be my question. I mean, that's what I would do, is just kind of lay out the math. You know, what do you get for that? What does it cost? If you were to get a Zillow lead or a Trulia lead or something like that, it's going to be $40 a piece. Well, 40 times 90 is what?
3,600, I think, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's really expensive to me. So when we start talking about this you know, $499 or $399, it's hard to see how that's real bad. And the nice thing is you don't have to commit to it long term. If it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you. You don't have this 3, 6, 12-month deal, and that's why I put that trial out there personally. I call it a trial, so that they can go ahead and justify it against a higher price. But again, I've maybe had 1 or 2 people that I've had to deal with. I can't afford the price. And the reality is that it's just not that expensive. They're in business. Like, you know, the average agent who's in the top 10%, and again, I'm kicking out that bottom 80%, is going to do $4, $5, $6 million in revenue. You know, transactions, not coming through their business, but that's the transaction volume that they're going to do, and they're going to get somewhere around 3% of that. So the reality is $450 just is not that much money. So what I would do is just break it down and say, listen, if you're gonna spend $450, or call it $400 for ease of math, and you're gonna get, you know, call it 80 phone calls. It's not that expensive. How else would you go about doing that? And that's what I would ask them. I'd let them try to talk to me about it and try to convince me. And then once they do that, they're gonna see how not smart. Their other approach is based on the dollars, and and then we're gonna talk some more, and I'm gonna try to close them again.
I like it. Yeah, when they say that they can't afford it, you just have to ask questions. But if you've built the value of what you're doing high enough, price won't be an issue. And Steve may not he may not see that because of the way he builds the value in what he's selling them, right? By making the packages a total no-brainer, which is what we've done, so you don't have to think about it, guys. But as a fallback, you could always have a low-cost trial package that could take this away. I would be hesitant on that because at the end of the day, most of the time you get this is you just didn't build enough value in what you're doing. And you saw how Steve just did it with math and how he let them figure it out. You know, you're talking like $5 a phone call. Thanks, Jamil. And remember, actually, this goes back to the last slide on lead gen. I just saw something Jamil said. It said, there's telemarketer fatigue. And what that means is when it comes to trigger words, SEO, reputation, leads, you guys all know the words, right? There are these words that have been hit so many times. I don't care if you're one of the 3 founders of Google calling a business to offer to address their SEO issue. You're done. SEO, hang up the phone, man. You know, I don't care if you founded Yahoo or Google. Yahoo founder is now available. At the end of the day, you're done. So, very good point on Jamil. Now, Steve talked about this, or we mentioned it a second ago. My marketing calendar or my marketing's full for 2017. You know, well, thanks, Betty. I'm glad you built out a plan. You know, our service is very focused on providing you interested homeowners who call you daily. Do you have other marketing that's already doing that you're getting daily calls from, that you're generating listings from every day? You know, just all you want to do is get them talking, get them answering questions. But when they say this, Steve, most of the time, once again, you haven't built enough value and they're just really trying to blow you off.
Yeah. I mean, that's the reality. You know, when I get into a conversation with a person, we start talking about what they're actually getting, right? And a lot of times I will bring up the average commission. You know, what average commission in Minnesota is about $5,000. Now, average commission in the city I'm in is about $9,000. So when we start talking about, hey, you know, you're going to have the opportunity to talk with 80 people, and granted, you're not going to sell every person's home. It's not going to happen. You and I both know that. But if you can put 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 people in your database that in the next 2 years are going to sell their home, what does that $450 do for you?
Yeah, right.
I mean, you're going to make $20K in commissions off of these people if you do your job right, which is to follow up with people. I assume you've got that in order, right? And they'll all say yes. Everyone will say yes, even the people that don't. And so they can go ahead and they can logically see that, you know what, if I'm only going to sell 4 of these people in the next 2 years, I'm going to make $20,000. And it's going to cost me $500 to do it. Well, let me ask you. I mean, let me ask you, Brian. If you could consistently spend $500 to make $20,000, how often would you spend that $500? How often would you buy that service?
Man, yeah.
As often as you could.
How often will you let me?
Well, I was just going to say, like, I'd run my credit cards up on that. You mean I'm going to get $20,000 back for a $500 investment? It's crazy. And yet, that's what happens in real estate. Like, that's why this can be so good. But leads are the lifeblood of making that happen. And that's what so many agents lack. They don't, like, they know they should be online. They know they should be prospecting, but they don't know how to put the systems together to actually make it happen. And that's where you come in. You send them a pin, they leave a voicemail, next thing you know, their phone's ringing and they're talking to people. Amazing.
You're keeping it really simple, and it's their voice everywhere. And it's amazing how powerful that is. What about, this is the ultimate blow-off? You've done something wrong. You've lacked confidence. You didn't build value. You did something wrong, but Steve, man, I'm kind of busy right now.
Do people actually get that? As
I wrote it down. I saw it in the group. I don't see this one. I'm not interested before I'm busy.
Oh, way sooner than that. Yeah. I mean, I don't get a ton of I'm busy right now because people are calling me back on their own.
Like, yeah. How busy are they when they called you?
Right.
Remember that point. This is one that you would get more on an outbound call. But
Oh,
if
sure.
they call you, it's hard for them to say they're busy. It's truly, it doesn't make any sense. They weren't busy. That's why they called you. Or you were important enough for them to call. It's not your fault they didn't listen to your message. That's just the reality. And they know that. So you're less likely to see this. I got it out of the Facebook group, but I didn't want to not address it. If they're blowing you off for whatever reason,
Then
email address.
get an email address and follow up with them. The money is in the follow up with a lot of these. I mean, I only close a couple of them, on the initial call. Most of them, something takes place afterwards, and I think a lot of them, it's just kind of letting it kind of simmer and permeate what they're doing and go from there. Not that they're not showing me excitement right at the beginning, but sometimes you just can't close them. I mean, it happens. So either way, the follow-up, even if you get someone who says, I'm busy right now, get their email address and then ask them what they want you to sell them, because now they're back on the hook for having to come up with something. And they're also then telling you what their issues are, right? So you're able to see if you can get past that I'm busy right now and let them tell you what information you should send them. Because when they're doing that, they're telling you what their other actual objections are, and you can start addressing them in the conversation.
Wow. Yeah, that's as big as it gets. Let's see, Steve. Here's a good time to ask. Greg was asking, can you talk about some of the scripts, and he uses that in quotes, or messaging that you give your agents when they get a call back? So I think, well, let me make sure there's not. Oh, Greg, I'm going to come back to that. I'm going to let Steve know so he can think on it for a minute. But before we do that, Steve, all right, this one we do get. Well, can you just send me some info? I'd like to know more, but I need to get going. Can you send me some info, etc.?
Yeah, I always say yes. I ask them for the email address. I make sure to get that before I then say, what would you like me to send you? And then they're giving me their actual objections, and I address them generally in the phone call, and then I try to close them again. And if I can't, then I'll send them an email.
Yep, and try to get them talking. Before you go, sneak in another question or two, right?
Yeah, it's one of the old school tactics where, like, when you're face to face or belly to belly or whatever, and you get up and you start leaving, then you ask them that last question, and you tie them down, close them, and walk out with a check.
Let's see, another objection, and I'll come back to some Steve-specific questions, like Doug Cameron. Doug had a good one, and then the one I just gave you, Steve. Who else do you work with? Yeah, Steve, I'm interested. Who else do you work with?
I've had that question. Is there someone else here locally I can talk to? And I say, quite frankly, they're your competitors, and I don't give out your information or their information. And then I just stop. I let them talk next. And they're going to let me know in their next, their next breath whether they're okay with that or whether they're going to want to see something. But it actually it goes back to not building enough rapport up front, right? Same thing as, can I see your website? Well, sure, I've got a website. I don't use it. In my business, it's almost never used. I'm not certain what's on there right now. I haven't updated it myself in months. The last person to update it is my project manager. I'll be super honest. I don't know what it says.
Nice.
It's just not where I generate my business. I mean, I use interruptive marketing for my business because it works. So
I like it, guys. Well, what I want to do right now is we're fortunate enough to have Steve on the call, and you guys have given me a few to ask him, and that's just what I'm going to do. And Steve will shoot from the hip and just lay it out for you. And I saw one from Doug Cameron a minute ago, and starting at the bottom. Steve, do you use follow-up voice drops or manual voice drops when you're touching base with people you've already spoken to? So
I call them.
Yeah, you just call them back. So you get 15 that are good follow-ups. You want to kind of spend a little time on them. You actually call them directly.
I do, yep. And I verify with them when I'm on the phone that I've got the best number for them, which generally it is, but occasionally they're like, you know what, this is actually my work phone. Why don't you let me give you this one? Or I'm actually going to be in the office, so I'm not going to have my personal phone on me. You'd be amazed how many business owners and stuff like that are using more than one cell phone.
And Steve, Gary Bird asked, and I missed yours, Gary, sorry. What about this one? Is there anybody else in my area that you're working with that can give you a reference or can tell me this is really working? Do you get anything like that? Usually, once again, you didn't build value and they don't believe you. You lack confidence on some level.
Well, I had a guy, gosh, I even sat down with him. He was early on, and he says, can you give me a guarantee? And I said, we don't give guarantees per se, but I said, what are you thinking? He says, can you guarantee me that this is going to run? It's a 2-week deal, 125 a day, and he says, can you guarantee I'm going to get like 20 calls back, or I'm going to, get my money back? And I wrote it for him right on the contract that we had set up. I hand wrote it on there. We both signed it. Said absolutely. I mean, I got him 23 phone calls his first day.
Sean just walked in. He just got off the phone. Sean, is anybody asking you for a guarantee on how many phone calls we're getting?
I think they do ask. Yeah, I've been asked that, once or twice.
A handful of times, probably. Yeah.
And I think Steve's response is perfect. Especially if you made 20 phone calls. I mean, shoot, we can deliver that in a day. I'm pretty confident.
Yeah, I mean, the cost to make that happen on our end to guarantee it is so minimal. Like, they're going to get calls. And that's one of the things that we're up against. And one of the reasons saying, lead generation is a bad word. Well, because everyone's called them and sold them everything under the sun, and they didn't know what they were getting. And someone said they were going to do SEO for them, and they were going to get 100 listings. And the reality is SEO is not going to get them 100 listings.
It'd be awesome if it did, you guys. I promise it would be awesome. Jason Yesser just said, Steve, do you get a lot of agents? And I know the answer to this one. Steve, do you get a lot of agents who want to use their own voice for the drops, or do you encourage them to use your own professional recording, so to speak?
So I don't offer them a professional recording. In Minnesota, they have to drop their own. It's got to be their voice, their name, and their broker. It's got to be them. So that's how we do it. We send them a PIN. They call into the line. They put the number in. They record a voicemail just like they would record a voicemail if they were calling someone. I get notified by an email when they do that or when they've completed that, and then I go set up the RVM.
All right, let's see. All right, guys, hang on. We've got. Oh, here's one from Beverly. Bev, I missed this. Should we be targeting sellers as a priority for fulfillment?
Yes.
So, yeah, Steve, you want to speak to that? So, once again, guys, targeting sellers as a priority for fulfillment. Do you understand what that means? What she's saying?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the idea is that if you're calling and telling the real estate agents that you can generate phone calls for them from homeowners, that's what you're doing. Homeowners are sellers, right? They may also be buyers, but first they're sellers. And that's the reality is that if an agent has a choice, generally they would rather be working with sellers because they can work with more of them or manage more of them at a time, so they can make more money. That's just the reality. You'd be hard pressed to find anyone that can work with 7, 8 sellers in a month. Buyers in a month. That's just the reality. Like you can't keep that pace up. It's too much work. But a hardworking agent could work with 10 plus listers or sellers at a time, and so absolutely, that's what they're more interested in. Quite frankly, the real estate agents, and it's an easy pitch. Right now, I just saw the numbers for my city. The market when you've got between 4 and 6 months of inventory, which is just the number of houses on the market, is considered a seller's market, right? Well, right now, my city has got 2.8 months worth of houses available. Like, it is a seller's market, definitely. And so what that does is it drives the price of the homes up, which means that people have equity that they can now take and go somewhere, right? They can upgrade to their next house or they can move. When people have very little equity or negative equity, they can't sell the house without coming out of pocket for cash or with cash. And so absolutely, now is a great time to talk to them about generating listings. All the agents that I've run into would want to generate more listings, not just because they make more money, but because right now there's just not enough on the market. So if you've got a way to do that, you're answering one of their core problems right now is how do I get more people to list their homes? Does that make sense?
Yeah, well said. Um, let's see. Fulfillment question. Mike Barton said, guys. All right, so Steve, imagine this is you. I'll put this out to you. You've got a zip code, say right near you, that has 2,700 consumers.
Mm-hmm.
How often can you hit them with a message? What would be the frequency of a campaign that you would do?
Ideally, you would do it once a month or more. When you take a look at like the direct mail approach, right? Agents will try to hit a farming area. What they call a geo farm is like you'll pick a neighborhood or a zip code, and you'll try to be the agent in that neighborhood and zip code. And so you'll try to get in front of these people repeatedly so that they see your face or hear your name or whatever, so that you're in front of them. That's what this allows them to do. So the reality is if a person got 2 phone calls or 2 messages a month, and they were spaced out a couple of weeks, I don't think that's a problem. But I mean, if you wanted to do it every other month, that would work too. The reality is that marketing, I mean, we're all here as marketers, right? It takes 5+ touches, and sometimes it's as high as 10 or 12 touches before you're going to get a sit down with that person, and that's okay. Like that's a good thing. That means we're doing our job because we're using the data to do what's best for ourselves and our clients or potential clients. At the end of the day, an agent should feel like they're the best fit for that client to be able to help them, and that they're able to help them, or else why are they in the business? Why are they in the industry, right? And so they're out there doing what's best for the potential client, the homeowner, by staying in front of them and getting them information. Hey, right now there's not enough homes on the market. Absolutely true statement. Our brokerage, or we may already have a buyer for your home. They're waiting for, the right home in, call it Minneapolis, to come on the market. And, if you've been considering selling your home, now may be a good time. Give me a call.
And I don't live in as hot of a market as Steve, but it's the same thing where I live. Like my neighborhoods or the price range, I live in a modest priced house. I definitely could buy a bigger house. I don't want to. I like having the disposable cash, but I constantly have realtors that either do a direct mail to me. I guess, Steve, what is it, farming a neighborhood, so to speak?
Yep.
Or they even stop by. All of a sudden I'm outside playing with the kids, and they're just introducing themselves. Now, I already have several good real estate friends, but at the end of the day, it's cool how they're working the area. They have buyers that want to buy houses in my neighborhood. I know where Sean lives on a lake right near me. If you guys have been to the live event, it's a lake across from the hotel. And Sean gets the same thing. He's across the street from the lake, so people that want to be on the lake but don't want to spend the big money, they're constantly hitting his side of the street. It happens anywhere and everywhere. And guess what? If your market has only if your market's cold, let's say, Steve, they're in a cold market where there isn't anything going on. You can get responses too.
People are still trying to move either way. I mean, what we know is the Census Bureau data says that 12% of homeowners are considering moving within the next 12 months at any given time. So 1 in 10 people or 1 in 8 people or something are considering selling their home.
I'm considering it right now. He and I talked about it at lunch yesterday.
Hey, if you're going to do that, let me know.
Yeah, right? Steve's going for the sale.
I'll send that referral over.
Yeah. Hey, Steve, here's a good one from Gail. Gail just said, I would like to know what Steve works out when you're referring overflow deals to other agents. So I think she's talking about now that you're an agent, you can do an agent-to-agent kind of deal. What kind of referral fee do you get paid? And she mentions 25% being on one side typically. How do you work it out? And any commentary on that, I think, is what she was looking for.
Sure. So the way that works is like the national average, what a lot of people do is 25%. So for instance, if Sean was going to move and I went ahead and he told me that or whatever, and I sent that information over, I found a local agent that was a good agent. I'd call that agent. I'd say, hey, I've got a lead for you. He's looking to sell. Is 25% good? And generally, that's the standard. So he'd say yes. I'd send him over a referral sheet, and he'd sign it, and then I'd send his information over, and he'd go out and help Sean list his house, and then probably buy the next house. Well, it'd only be on that initial sale or that initial transaction that I'd get 25% of the commission. Now, that number is higher some places. That number is lower some places. It depends on how much work goes in. If you're talking about doing it on a team, for instance. But generally 25% is going to be the number, and it can go as high as 40%. I've not seen anything higher.
Nice. All right, guys. Give me any questions we're missing. Any questions at all, and then we'll answer them. Otherwise, I want to shut this down. I want to shut the call down. Doesn't mean we won't do more calls. I just want to shut this one down. What are we missing? Give me specific things that I can ask Steve right now. That'd be awesome. And otherwise, what we're going to move on to an additional call that I will set up. All right. How does recording their own message work? Brian Morrow asks. It's just a pin-based system. I'll have Vanessa put something out that explains it, Brian. It's really easy to do. 800 number and a pin. Steve, here's a good one from Paul. Paul said, what percentage of agents continue to use the service after they get started with an initial package? So, I guess he's asking, do you have a lot of attrition? What's your stick rate? Etc.
I don't know, about half. The reality is, guys, what you're selling them is a lot. It's a lot for an agent to handle. That's the reality. That's why I sell them such small packages, because if I were dropping, call it 2,000 drops over a 2-week period, or even over a month, there's 20 days in a month. What is that? 2,000 of them would be about a month's worth at 100 a day, 5 days a week. These people, they literally will get overwhelmed. It's a lot of phone calls. So that's something to I guess, keep in mind, is that, again, a lot of agents are complacent. They're happy making $100,000 a year and don't necessarily need to do the work to make $150,000, but think they want to. And so those are going to be the ones that drop off, are the ones that find out, oh my gosh, it's too much work. You're literally working yourself out of a job in that respect by providing it, because 10 to 15 extra calls a day turns into 2 to 3 good contacts a day, turns into 60 new legit leads that they have to follow up with every month. Like that's a lot.
I love it. What's the best call to action in scripts to getting homeowners to respond? CC, look at the module in there where we talk about client fulfillment module. There's a bunch of sample scripts, and you can see all of them with exactly which ones were good, not so good, because best is different. If you want a certain message, you may say 12% is good, or you may say, God, I want that 25% home run hitter. It's hard to say, but we got them all in there, and you can look at them. Chester, no, I missed yours. Let me find it, and then we're going to end with Chester here. Let's see. I'm scrolling up till I find it. Here it is. Okay. I posted in Facebook, guys, a question about qualities of a realtor that make him a good candidate for a good long-term client. And Chester goes on to say, I knew having customer handling skills, selling processes were important. I suggested sales volume to cover affordability. Was suggested budget, which may go back to currently paying for leads. So basically, a realtor that's good at dealing with customers, has an existing volume of homes they're selling, and has a budget that they're paying for leads. And I think he's asking Steve, what other indicators would allow him to really hone in on the real quality realtors that are going to be in it for the long haul? What kind of certain items that he would want to look for?
Yeah. So the number one thing I would look for is whether they use a CRM. If they use a CRM, like a customer management system, then they're going to be more organized and more serious about real estate, right? A lot of people literally are living off of these, Post-it notes. They're following up with people as they can, as they remember to. It's like it's not something that's systematic for them. So anyone that is systematizing their approach to dealing with customers is going to be a better fit for you, right? It allows them to be able to stay on top of the leads. And they're the ones that are going to understand the long-term benefit of having a lead in their database, right? So if you know, like I just said, if they go through and get 10 calls a day that turn into 2 decent contacts over the course of 30 days, they're going to have 60 people. What do they do then? What's their next step? Well, if they're using a CRM, the CRM is going to feed it to them. They're going to put them on drips. They're going to automatically have follow-up emails that are going out to these people, and that's how they're going to harvest the 4 to 5 sales in the next 2 years out of those 60 contacts, right? And those are the people that are maximizing what they're doing. Now, they're also perfect upsells for, hey, guess what? I've got a great way to be able to generate a bunch of leads for you from Facebook, bypassing Zillow. So we're going to do it for you for roughly half the price. Well, now you get to go out and do that for them as well because they are using that CRM. That's the number one thing I think that the top guys really do is they use a CRM to be able to stay in front of their people and drip messages to them and know that, hey, you know what, I should call everyone in my database at least once every 3 months, even if they're not looking right now because things change. And the number one reason that agents don't get used again are because people forget who they are. That's the reality. 87% or something of people who buy or sell a home say that they're happy with the service they got from their real estate agent, but only 11% reuse that same agent. That 11%, generally it's because those agents are staying in front of them with drips using a CRM.
If you don't remember, somebody else is going to get in front of mine. That's all.
Yeah. So,
well, guys, listen, Steve, I want to say thank you. A nice surprise having you here. I appreciate all the good questions. We are actually doing a voice drops call right now. All of you guys are welcome to join. I'm going to post the link in the I'm going to post the link for you guys to jump on if you'd like to participate in the PBN real estate area so you have it. But I need to shut this call off so that it'll let me start the other call. But with that being said, I really appreciate it. I want to say thank you to Steve and every one of you for the great questions. Sean for coming in. Thank you guys, and we will chat with you soon. Thanks, Steve. See ya.
Thanks, guys.